Now, the conversation that we would be having on Tea or Coffee this morning is the dangers in building collapse in Nigeria. Now, for the past about 2 weeks or so, there's been a lot of story, there's been a lot of news on the recent Ikoyi collapse in Lagos State, Nigeria. Lives have been lost, property lost, a lot of investments has been lost, and this investigations are still going into this particular story. The death tolls continue to increase as it seems like some people are still even trapped under the rubble. Now, the Ikoyi collapse is going to be our case study this morning, but the topic of conversation that we will be having is looking into the dangers of building collapse. And we have a lot of questions to ask on Tea or Coffee this morning. What is the role of the architect? What is the role of a structural engineer? What is the role of the government to play in mitigating building collapses in Nigeria? Now, we have a guest in our studio this morning with us in name and person of Alaka Kehinde Bolanriwa. He is a graduate of architecture from the Federal University of Technology, Akure. He holds a diploma in interior design from Dorothy Vance Wright Design Academy, South Africa, with over 18 years in architectural practice. Worked as an architect in BWAX Consultant and GYB Consult Limited before teaming up with Like Minds to start a design and build company called Studio de Renaissance. We are very, very fortunate to have you in the studio to address and look at some of these questions. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Adi. It's good to have you be in the studio this Monday morning.
Thank you very much.
Highly appreciated.
Thank you very much, sir. So, we're going to start off from the background. The conversation we're having is on building collapses in Nigeria, the dangers of building collapses in Nigeria. Now, what we're trying to do on Tea or Coffee is not particularly analyze the Ikoyi case study, but analyzing why do buildings come down in Nigeria, or why do buildings come down, and what roles, the key roles with the people involved in putting a building up. What are they supposed to do? What is expected of them? And we're going to start, from your side of the table, which is the desk of the architect. So what is the role of an architect in designing a building?
Thank you. Thank you, Adi. The role of an architect is quite enormous in a building project.
Yeah.
They are called the master builders. They are the first to get in touch with the consultant, with the client.
Okay.
They get the brief, they download the imagination of the client into a construction plan, and then they prepare technical documents for all other consultants to work with.
Okay.
Consultants like structural engineers, mechanical engineers, the quantity surveyors, and all other consultants on the building project.
Yeah.
They head the design team and the construction team. We can call the architects as the Alpha and Omega of the project.
Okay.
They are there at the beginning, and they're always there at the end of the project to ensure high standards and the functional building is being developed.
Okay.
So architects also have as project managers as well.
Okay.
So their tax is quite enormous.
All right.
They oversee every aspect of the project. So they are key to every project, to every building project.
Okay, so let's talk about high standards. You say that architects, one of the roles of an architect is ensuring high standards.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? How would an architect try to ensure a high standard for a building project they're working on?
To an architect, a building project is like his baby.
Okay.
He wants to see, like this verse now, he wants to see it as he has imagined. So he wouldn't want a form of the word to use now, a form of
It's floor.
short corners,
Okay.
cutting corners or flaws on his baby.
Okay.
So he sits on the structural engineer to ensure that your columns are rightly placed, your cantilevers are rightly done, the beams are rightly done, the calculations are right. It sits with the HMI engineer to ensure that the plumbing services are good enough, the air conditioning is placed where it's meant to be placed, so that the overall function of the building will be satisfactory by the client. It takes the glory, the entire team takes the glory.
Okay, okay, so I've been to a few sites,
Okay.
and when I go to some of these building sites, there's usually a person they call, engineer, when they say, engineer is around. I always get confused because, I know there's an architect who you have said heads the project, but then there's what we call a structural engineer, which you have just mentioned. So what is the relationship between the architect and a structural engineer in ensuring high standards?
The engineer, the structural engineer, and the architect work hand in hand.
Okay.
It's like a team.
Okay.
The architect designs. He comes in. There's what we call a soil test investigation
Okay.
that is being carried out
Soil test.
for him to know the structural stability of the site. With that, he works with the concept of the architect to come up with the structure of the building. So the role of the architect and the structural engineer is to ensure that the building stands.
Right.
To the steel to be used, they ensure that they are to high standards. To the concrete mix, they ensure that it's high standard because they don't do the construction as well. The builder does the construction, the contractor does the construction, but their own role is to ensure that their details is being adhered to by the contractor.
Okay.
So they ensure that, you buy the steel. Have you done the test of the steel? Can I see the result of the test? Oh, your concrete. Can I see the cube test? Or can I see the way you're mixing? So they ensure that my product is well done. So
Yeah.
that's the role of
Okay.
the architect.
All right.
And the structural engineer.
So, to ensure accountability, so if we're in Nigeria, sometimes, when someone says it's morning, you need to go and check outside to ensure whether it's afternoon or not. So, to ensure that the words of the structural engineer do sound, how is there any form of accountability between the architect and the structural engineer? So if the structural engineer has said, yes, I have done this, what is the accountability?
So that's why they call the architect the master builder.
Okay.
For material testing in Lagos State, case in point, because of the cutting corners that they've experienced over the time, Lagos State has their own material testing lab now.
Okay.
So when the contractor goes there to test his steel reinforcement, to test his concrete, documents are forwarded to the architects and also the structural engineer. So the architect is knowledgeable enough to have a look at the test result and ensure, it gets in touch with the structural. Are you comfortable with this? I can be comfortable. You are the professional. I just have a few brief knowledge on structures. I don't have that deep knowledge as an architect.
Right.
But me looking at the document, I can say, yeah, this is good. And I get to my structural. Are you satisfied with this? If it's not, we check the contractor. If it is, they will certify for further works to be done on site. So there's a synergy between the architect and the structural engineer.
All right. So now, taking all of this into consideration, we've looked at the role of the architect. We looked at the relationship between the architect and the structural engineer. We've looked at how accountability is actually realized, between the architect and the engineers on a project. So I want to go into our case study. Are you familiar with the Ikoyi collapse?
Quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
I should have even passed my condolences earlier to the family of the deceased.
Yes, actually.
It's
a very sad story.
It's a sad story, the sad incident, and I pray that the good God will strengthen and console the entire family.
Yeah. So I want us to focus on the technical aspects of this collapse. Looking at the things, the precedents we have stated in this conversation: role of the architect, relationship between architect and structural engineer. What do you think went wrong? Given the facts that we are aware of, as an architect, as someone who has experience in building projects, what is your opinion on this?
Well, let me just give you what actually happened. When I got the call from my twin brother, he's into surveying as well. Kenny, have you heard of the collapse of the building, 21 story? I said, no. I checked the social media, it's there. I just went on social media and I checked, wow. The first question that came to my head, what could have happened? For a 21-story building to come crumbling down, what could have happened? Series of questions keep coming into my head. Was it a soil test investigation gone wrong? Was it a design error? Was it a construction error? Was it due to use of substandard materials? Or should we just blame it on the government agencies that oversees the construction of the building? I believe Lagos State have set up a forensic committee to have a look at the collapsed building. And I would employ Lagos State to ensure that the results, the report is made known to Lagosians, because there are questions to be answered.
Yeah.
A lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah.
Souls were lost, precious souls were lost. Investors' money gone down the drain. What happened? We saw in the social media letters from the structural engineer exiting the project. What could have gone wrong? After exiting, was another structural engineer contracted to oversee the structural aspect of the building? Do we have consultants on the building? These are gray areas of the project that we need answers to as professionals and as investors, as citizens of the state. We need answers to these questions. You understand what I'm saying? Because what could have gone wrong?
Yeah.
What happened? We saw in the social media a 15th floor being approved, turned out to be 21 floors. Sometimes June last year, the project was sealed. Who unsealed it? These are gray areas on the project that we need answers to. So I might not be able to tell you what went wrong. A lot of things could have gone wrong. It could be a design problem, it could be a construction problem, but we need answers to this. And I believe the state government should be able to avail us the report so that future occurrence can be averted.
So my next question isn't actually a question of critique, but of inquiry. And what I want to ask is, do you think Lagos State governments could have done a lot better into ensuring, that standards were actually met for their building?
Yeah, they could have done better, truly. Lagos State have the machinery to ensure this is done, but are they effective? They have the planning authorities, they have the control boards, material control board, they have the labs, they have the structural integrity test unit. They have all they need to ensure basic standards, necessary standards is being adhered to. It's being adhered to in the on building site. But how effective are they?
Yeah.
The question is, I might not be able to answer that. But if they are actually effective, such collapse can be averted.
Okay. Now, is Lagos ready for, buildings, high-rise buildings like that? Now, First Coast Heights Limited, they were about to do something quite remarkable with that project, with the 360 sky view and all of that, 21 floors. Are we ready for something like that? Given, all of the cutting of corners, the comment on Lagos State government, are we ready for things like that in this country?
I might not be able to talk about Nigeria as a whole, but I should be able to talk about Lagos State, where I'm domiciled.
Yeah.
I believe Lagos State is quite ready, but the machinery, they have the machinery in place. They have the expertise. They have the best of the consultants working for Lagos State in all of their agencies. But how effective are they? Are they 100%? Are they optimal in what they do? And when they carry out their activities, do some powers that be, do they prevent them from doing their biddings? And then the case in point, the site in Ikoyi, the site was closed, was sealed off. Who unsealed it? So that's the questions we need answers to.
Right.
But truly, Lagos State is really ready for sky-rise buildings. They are actually ready. They have the machinery.
Yeah.
But what we need is to be effective in their output.
Yeah. All right. Now, not to trivialize the lives that were lost in this particular collapse. The other day I saw that a 10-year-old was actually around the site. Very, very, very sad. Now, not to trivialize the lives that were lost, I want to talk about the investment that has been put into, some of the properties that in that particular collapsed building. Now, reports are saying that, the least amount for a flat in that place was actually about $1.2 million or something like this. Now, to people, to the 1% of the 1% who are able to invest this kind of money money into properties, what kind of things should they be looking for? You know, so, because you know the investment that have gone into these buildings, you know, have pretty much collapsed, you know, with the investor, with the builder. So what should investors probably look out for before putting their money into such a project?
So from my own point of view, I will first say I will check out the documentation of the project itself.
Right.
Documentation includes approval, land, the COO, and everything to ensure that there won't be any form of litigation on the project afterwards. After that is being cleared, I will advise a potential investor to get services of a building professional that could look at the building. Just by looking at the building, could tell that
Objectively.
this building could fall. This building, they didn't adhere to some basic standards in construction. And for that level of construction, with that level of property, I want to believe there should be video evidences of the construction process itself.
Right.
I want me to spend 1.2 million naira, $1.2 million on the project. I should be able to have a look at how this thing were done. To flip through maybe an hour clip of, oh, this was happening when we were doing the casting of the column, this when we were casting the slab, these are the precautions that were put in place before these activities were going on. That I would like to have. Documents like steel tests, concrete tests, I would love to have it as well. So I present it to my professional to have a look at, advise me if I should go ahead or not.
Right, right.
Before you could put that kind of money there.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
All right. So now, lastly, let's now look at the role of policymakers. And you know, we've said, we've mentioned documentation. We've mentioned that you know this building was at some point sealed and became unsealed. You know, questions are surrounding that. But you know, policymakers, what exactly, you know, let's pinpoint their role in this particular in building collapse in Lagos.
They have a huge role to play.
Yeah.
Policymakers, governments have a huge role to play because as individuals, we have our roles to play. As government, they have their role to play. Government have agencies to oversee different aspects of construction. Before construction, we compile our drawings, our documents, technical documents, architectural drawings, structural drawings, sometimes the mechanical and electrical drawings. We compile it and send it to the necessary agencies for approval. What they do is not that they just look at drawing, they check, do our building, does it conform to the bylaws of the planning of that area we're building to? Do the building, is the building design favorable for this part of Lagos? Is the structural drawings in relation to the soil test report, are they at par? This is what they check before approval is given. Even after approval is given, moving to site, there are agencies that come routinely to carry out investigations on the materials you're using, on the personnel on site, on how material is being handled. If they are optimal performance, such collapse would not have existed. Even they put the consultants, the professionals at check, because you won't want the government to see your building because of your lapse on your own hand. So the professionals are at check when they are optimal in their performance.
Okay.
So there's the role of the policymakers is actually key. Without that, I would like to we won't see the end of this collapse in Lagos.
All right. So, you know, please correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, prior to the Ikoyi collapse, I had not been seeing a lot of collapse in Lagos.
You've not been saying...
Or I have not been paying attention. Maybe that's, you know, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. Now, has building collapse, has it deteriorated, or is it only this, you know, on average, or has it increased? What is the state?
Unfortunately, I was listening to your newspaper review, and there's a statistics on building collapse in Lagos. It has not actually deteriorated. It's on the increase, unfortunately, because maybe because nothing is being done to the past collapse. We've not heard anything about the collapse. Some years ago, some years ago, a church guest house collapsed. Over 140-something people died. What did we hear after it? Who was penalized? Was the building sealed off? Was it taken over? What happened to the consultant? What happened to the contractor? What happened to the client? Nothing. Everything we're seeing in the dark on that project.
So there's an issue with investigation.
We have issues in investigation. We have issues in investigation there.
Interesting.
So, intending developers, if this one could, if A can go with, I can too. So that's what we need to check actually.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for joining us
Thank you for
on
your
the
time,
show
Ade.
this morning. It has been a lovely, it's been wonderful gaining a perspective from an architect on the conversation of building collapse in Lagos. Please join us another time on Tea or Coffee.
Surely I will.